Judith chapter 5. It was reported to Holofernes, the ranking general of the Assyrian forces, that the Israelites were ready for battle, had blocked the mountain passes, fortified the hilltops, and placed roadblocks in the plains. In great anger he summoned all the rulers of Moab, the governors of Ammon, and all the satraps of the coastland, and said to them, "Now tell me, you Canaanites, what sort of people is this that lives in the hill country? Which cities do they inhabit? How large is their force? In what does their power and strength consist? Who has set himself up as their king and the leader of their army? Why have they alone of all the inhabitants of the west refused to come out to meet me?" Then Achior, the leader of all the Ammonites, said to him, "My lord, please listen to a report from your servant. I will tell you the truth about this people that lives in the hill country near here. No lie shall escape your servant's mouth. These people are descendants of the Chaldeans. They formerly lived in Mesopotamia, for they did not wish to follow the gods of their ancestors who were in the land of the Chaldeans. Since they abandoned the way of their ancestors and worshipped the God of heaven, the God whom they had come to know, their ancestors expelled them from the presence of their gods. So they fled to Mesopotamia and lived there a long time. Their God told them to leave the place where they were living and go to the land of Canaan. Here they settled and grew very rich in gold, silver, and a great abundance of livestock. Later, when famine had gripped the land of Canaan, they went down into Egypt. They stayed there as long as they found sustenance, and there they grew into such a great multitude that the number of their people could not be counted. The king of Egypt, however, rose up against them and shrewdly forced them to labor at brickmaking. They were oppressed and made into slaves. But they cried to their God, and he struck the whole land of Egypt with plagues, for which there was no remedy. So the Egyptians drove them out. Then God dried up the Red Sea before them and led them along the route to Sinai and Kadesh Barnea. They drove out all the inhabitants of the wilderness and settled in the land of the Amorites. By their strength they destroyed all the Heshbonites, crossed the Jordan, and took possession of all the hill country. They drove out before them the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Shechemites, and the Girgashites, and they lived there a long time. As long as the Israelites did not sin in the sight of their God, they prospered, for their God, who hates wickedness, was with them. But when they abandoned the way he had prescribed for them, they were utterly destroyed by frequent wars and finally taken as captives into foreign lands. The temple of their God was razed to the ground, and their cities were occupied by their enemies. But now they have returned to their God, and they have come back from the diaspora where they were scattered. They have reclaimed Jerusalem, where their sanctuary is, and have settled again in the hill country, because it was unoccupied. So now, my master and Lord, if these people are inadvertently at fault, or if they are sinning against their God, and if we verify this offense of theirs, then we will be able to go up and conquer them. But if they are not a guilty nation, then let my Lord keep his distance. Otherwise their Lord and God will shield them, and we will be mocked in the eyes of all the earth." Now when Achior had finished saying these things, all the people standing round about the tent murmured, and the officers of Holofernes and all the inhabitants of the seacoast and of Moab alike said he should be cut to pieces. "We are not afraid of the Israelites," they said, "for they are a powerless people, incapable of a strong defense. Therefore, let us attack, Master Holofernes. They will become fodder for your great army." Judith chapter 6. When the noise of the crowd surrounding the council had subsided, Holofernes, the ranking general of the Assyrian forces, said to Achior, in the presence of the whole throng of foreigners, of the Moabites, and of the Ammonite mercenaries, "Who are you, Achior and the mercenaries of Ephraim, to prophesy against us as you have done today, and to tell us not to fight against the people of Israel because their God shields them? Who is God besides Nebuchadnezzar? He will send his force and destroy them from the face of the earth. Their God will not save them. But we, the servants of Nebuchadnezzar, will strike them down with one blow, for they will be unable to withstand the force of our cavalry. We will overwhelm them with it, and their mountains shall be drunk with their blood, and their plains filled with their corpses. Not a trace of them shall survive our attack. They will utterly perish. So says King Nebuchadnezzar, Lord of all the earth, for he has spoken, and his words will not be in vain. As for you, Achior, you Ammonite mercenary, for saying these things in a moment of perversity, you will not see my face after today, until I have taken revenge on this people that came out of Egypt. Then at my return, the sword of my army or the spear of my attendants will pierce your sides, and you will fall among their wounded. My servants will now conduct you to the hill country and leave you at one of the cities besides the passes. You will not die until you are destroyed together with them. If you still harbor the hope that they will not be taken, then there is no need for you to be downcast. I have spoken, and not one of my words will fail to be fulfilled. Then Holofernes ordered the servants who were standing by in his tent to seize Achior, conduct him to Bethulia, and hand him over to the Israelites. So the servants seized him and took him out of the camp into the plain. From the plain they led him up into the hill country until they reached the springs below Bethulia. When the men of the city saw them, they seized their weapons and ran out of the city to the top of the hill, and all the slingers kept them from coming up by hurling stones at them. So, taking cover below the hill, they bound Achior and left him lying at the foot of the hill. Then they returned to their lord. The Israelites came down from their city and found him, untied him, and brought him into Bethulia. They placed him before the rulers of the city, who in those days were Uzziah, son of Micah, of the tribe of Simeon, and Chabris, son of Gothoniel, and Charmis, son of Melchiel. They then convened all the elders of the city, and all their young men, as well as the women, gathered in haste at the place of assembly. They placed Achior in the center of the people, and Uzziah questioned him about what had happened. He replied by giving them an account of what was said in the council of Holofernes, and all of his own words among the Assyrian rulers, and of all the boasting threats of Holofernes against the house of Israel. At this the people fell prostrate and worshiped God, and they cried out, Lord, God of heaven, look at their arrogance. Have mercy on our people in their abject state, and look with favor this day on the faces of those who are consecrated to you. Then they reassured Achior and praised him highly. Uzziah brought him from the place of assembly to his home, where he gave a banquet for the elders. That whole night they called upon the God of Israel for help.